For 4 decades, Silicon Valley lived inside a perfect illusion. They believed you could build a $3 trillion empire entirely out of code, leaving the physical world behind. And for a long time, it worked. But the race for artificial intelligence has brought a violent reckoning. It shattered the illusion of the cloud and replaced it with a brutal structural reality. You cannot code superintelligence out of thin air. It requires a massive physical foundation.
Parallel, but there's stage
5x growth since last I.O.
One of the major technology challenges that we're still working through.
And by the way, we have a lot of our internal builders using Claude.
As the architects of software pour billions into the future, they are colliding with a cold financial truth. All their capital and all their code cannot buy the one thing they've always had: invincibility. The giants of the internet have been reduced to dependence. The center of gravity has shifted. To survive, the greatest monopolies in history must now lease their future from a single entity. Silicon Valley is engaged in the most expensive arms race in human history. Tens of billions are pouring into the infrastructure of tomorrow. But there is a silent, brutal mathematics to this war. For every billion spent to conquer the future, a massive percentage is automatically surrendered to Nvidia. Nvidia doesn't just sell chips. They own the structural foundation of AI, and the resulting capital erosion is staggering. To understand the gravity of this dependency, look at the sovereign with the most to lose: Microsoft. By backing OpenAI, Microsoft tethered itself to the most demanding AI on Earth. But running ChatGPT created a fatal paradox.
We're just doing and increasingly more advanced things. At some point, say like,
every time you prompt ChatGPT, your request is routed through Azure data centers that are still largely shackled to Nvidia's architecture. The math is inescapable. Almost every ChatGPT request still surrenders a massive cut to Nvidia. The king of the PC revolution has become the largest tenant inside a hardware company's infrastructure. If the capital erosion is this severe, why doesn't Microsoft simply abandon the architecture? They're trying. They are buying billions in AMD chips as a temporary stopgap, desperately trying to stem the capital drain while they scale their own sovereign silicon. So, why does the dependency remain unbroken? It's easy to assume Nvidia's architecture is simply the fastest, but look closer at the math. The hardware is just the surface.
I spend my time on things that have long-lasting impact on the company. One area is product planning, strategy planning.
20 years ago, long before the AI arms race, Nvidia released CUDA, a layer of code that allowed developers to speak directly to Nvidia's silicon. For a decade, they quietly seeded this platform into universities, research labs, and startups. They made it the default language of the future. Today, almost every major AI model on Earth is hardwired to speak CUDA. But some of Microsoft's rivals foresaw this choke point. Rivals like Google with its TPU and Amazon with its Trainium. They started building custom silicon a decade ago, giving them the time to write proprietary languages to run their hardware. They built independent ecosystems. But even they are not immune. While their internal compute is insulated, they are still forced to buy billions in Nvidia silicon just to keep their external cloud businesses alive. Because out in the open market, developers demand the Nvidia standard. But Microsoft, tethered to the massive CUDA-dependent architecture of OpenAI, was locked entirely inside Nvidia's ecosystem. The brutal reality? CUDA only works on Nvidia chips. It is an invisible, impenetrable moat. Microsoft could spend $10 billion tomorrow on alternative processors, but for the heaviest AI training, the math wouldn't matter. The code simply will not run efficiently. They aren't just locked into a supply chain, they are integrated into an ecosystem. And Nvidia holds the only key. But the sovereign of software is not waiting to bleed out. Deep inside the guarded server farms of Azure, an internal rebellion has begun. Microsoft knows that as long as they pay the monopoly's premium, their future is not their own. They have triggered a multi-billion-dollar contingency plan, Project Maya. For years, it was a delayed blueprint, a whiteboard fantasy. But in 2026, those blueprints have become physical reality. Microsoft is now bolting its own proprietary silicon into the floor, attempting to build a parallel universe where Nvidia does not exist. But right now, that deployment is a drop in the ocean. And here is where the choke point becomes terrifying. To escape the moat, Microsoft isn't just manufacturing a chip. They are trying to rewrite the entire translation layer of artificial intelligence from scratch. They have to convince the world's top developers to abandon the CUDA language they've spoken for 20 years and learn a new one. Deploying this hardware is not just an upgrade. It is a trillion-dollar structural decoupling. The entire financial world is holding its breath, watching to see if the king of the PC era can finally break the dependency, or if they will remain a tenant in the entity's empire.
This is Vera Rubin. When we think Vera Rubin, we think the entire system.
But here is the final terrifying math. Even if Microsoft and its rivals execute an escape, Nvidia is not a stationary target. To kill the competition, Nvidia didn't just build a moat. They shifted to a ruthless one-year cycle. It takes a sovereign like Microsoft 3 years to design and bolt a custom chip into the floor. But by the time that silicon goes live, Nvidia has already launched a new architecture that makes it mathematically obsolete. Their ultimate defense isn't a patent, it is sheer blinding velocity. The greatest gold rush of the 21st century is underway, but as the tech behemoths dig frantically into the future, searching for the next trillion-dollar breakthrough, the entire industry is forced to buy their shovels from a single entity.